Testing. 1, 2, 3. Welcome along to my video supporting the blog on the newly released Nintex Workflow Cloud workflow testing feature. We're just going to run through some of the configuration. Should be a really quick video to highlight some of the features that's just been released. So you'll see got a really simple workflow that's been created. Start event form, a couple of start event variables, a task, and an email. And you have this new workflow testing option. Now it's grayed out for now, and it says as you hover over, workflow must be saved or published before testing. So it won't allow you to run a test until you have at least one save event. So we're going to do that now. Just hit save. My test, save. Okay, workflow's been saved and workflow testing is now available. So it's worth mentioning at this point, what you're about to do with workflow testing is basically a production run of the workflow. So the value here is that we're able to do that from within the canvas rather than have to leave the canvas and run a manual start. So think of workflow testing in that way. Won't be able to do individual actions, but we will be able to run the whole workflow as a production run. So it's worth looking at how you're working with development connections, test and dev connections, and so on. So we're going to run workflow testing, and it begins to stage the workflow. Now if you make a change to the workflow while the test is running, it's not going to pick up that change. You'll have to stop the test and retest. So we're going to add some text. This is effectively my form. So let's add some text. This is a test for testing, and my email. So we'll just use a dummy account and submit. So submitting a form like we would in the real world, but I'm not actually having to leave the canvas to do so. I'm not having to leave the canvas to run a manual start either. So the workflow test has now started, and the workflow has started. And you'll see up here it's refreshing. So it's going to refresh every 10 seconds. And it's going to initiate the actual workflow. So you see here I've got to assign a task. It's hit that first action. If I go into my tasks tab, once it refreshes, that should pop up. And I'm now able to select the outcome of the task from within here. Now we'll also be sending a task as configured in the workflow to the email that I put in the form. It's going to keep going through the refresh, and you'll see I haven't responded to the task yet, so we haven't advanced through. So let's just approve. That's approved that task without having to actually go in and effectively approve the task from within email. And then when it refreshes next, it should jump to the next action in the queue, which is my approved branch. Workflow test has now been complete, and it looks like everything ran okay. But what if I drag in an action that is not configured? So I'll just go down and I'll drag in something like a call to web service, and we'll run the workflow test again. Start a new test, stages the workflow, and it begins the test again. Testing 2, add my same email again, and submit. So the workflow's begun. We'll wait for this refresh to count down a few seconds. And we should see the instance, the initial task, laid out in front of me. Test is now running. Instance will update in a few seconds. So we'll jump to tasks. I'm going to approve this one again. So we go down the approvals branch. I can manually refresh if I want to. That's just going to force a refresh. I'm just going to reset that 10-second timer, jump down to my instances, refresh again, and it notices that that call web service action has not been configured. Therefore, the workflow failed, and it's telling me why it failed. For a reason, URL field does not contain a value. So I can go back and remediate that. So that's my very quick introduction to the workflow testing functionality that's been released for Nintex Workflow Cloud. It's going to be supporting the blog that's been released as well. Let us know what your opinions, your views are on workflow testing, where we can improve this, how we can make it better through the Nintex user voice channel. Thank you.